Armament Shop, folks. I'm Brent, and today we're going to be talking about the Atlas Athena. Now, for those of you that aren't familiar with it, the Atlas Athena is a machine that turns money into fun at an incredible rate. Seriously though, the Atlas Athena is a fantastic pistol from Atlas Gunworks, and if you're not aware, Atlas Gunworks has really become one of the big names in the custom 2011 market. They have a great reputation of expertise and knowledge with the 2011 platform and make some of the best performing pistols available. If you go to any USPSA, IDPA, multi-gun, tactical games match, you're going to see a good handful of these. Now let's go over some technical specs real quick, then we'll move on to our impressions and some test results. But first, a quick word from our sponsor, us. Buy a holster. All right. We did purchase this gun. It was not given to us in exchange for any reviews or positive treatment in any way. We needed it for work because we needed to make a holster for it. We did get a bit of a deal because it's a blem gun, and I'm not going to show you where the blem is because even if I tried to show you, you wouldn't see it, which is a testament to the incredible quality and attention to detail that Atlas puts into their pistols. Now, the Athena is a 9mm optics-ready full-size pistol. It features a 4.6-inch bull barrel, steel frame, aluminum V2 grip, and a fiber optic front sight. Now, a 4.6-inch barrel may seem a bit short for a full-size gun, but the Athena is a grower, not a shower. Obviously, girth is another incredibly important component of pleasure when it comes to shooting and recoil control, that is. And this motherfucker is stout. Weighing in at about 2 pounds, 14 ounces empty with the optic installed and this big bastard mag well. If you go with a 26-round mag, that pretty much adds another pound to that as well. Now, if you order one of these off their website, there's a plethora of options available. You can choose everything from the trigger weight, shape, color, to different grip panels, color and finish options, to whether or not it locks back on an empty mag, 3 different mag weld choices, all sorts of cool stuff. I did not actually select any of the options when I got this gun, as I got it, as is where is with whatever options were already on it, it being a blem gun. So it's kind of what I call a semi-custom because there were a bunch of options on it, but they weren't ones that I selected. So let's go over the gun and then we'll talk about our impressions of it. Now, one of the first things you'll notice when you pick this thing up is the V2 grip, which is aggressive, but it just sticks to your hand so well. It's like a fresh pair of socks or a brand new fleshlight. You don't have to worry about this sucker sliding around in your hands. Now, the cool thing about the Atlas grips is that you can actually change out the side grip panels. The pistol I received came with the standard grip panels as well as one right side palm swell. I did pick up another one of their step panels for the left side, and unfortunately I got a little bit antsy and didn't match the same texture to the grip. So this one's a aggressive texture rather than the kind of mod texture that's on the rest of the grip, but yeah, it is what it is. It does feel nice and aggressive. Now, these panels are available in a step panel, flat, palm swell, and even a carry version, which is a lot more smooth, as well as steel, aluminum, and brass versions, which is a unique feature to the Atlas guns. Not really any other 2011 on the market has something like this, so it's really nice to be able to tailor it to your hand. Now, while we're looking at the grip, let's chat about the mag well. This gun came with a tactical mag well, but I did swap it out for a large hands alpha grip mag well so I could go full send on my reloads. To be honest, I'm not a huge fan of either of those mag wells, and I think that's kind of the only weak point in this gun. Yes, the mag well is larger, but it doesn't really have the ability to turn mags like some of the other ones do. For example, I have a Limcat mag well on my XC for when I shoot that in a match, and that thing will turn a mag that's damn near 90 degrees fucked up. Whereas the tactical mag well from Atlas won't turn the mag basically at all. In fact, I've never actually gotten a mag jammed up in the mag well until I used this one. And unfortunately, the big bastard mag well isn't substantially better. It will turn mags, but it's not as easily. It takes kind of some force to do it, and it's not as smooth as the Limcat or even the stock tactical staccato mag well, to be honest. Now wait, stop typing. I can hear the clicking from here, and I know what you're going to say. You're going to say, Brent, I know you're good looking and probably smell real nice and all, but have you considered that maybe you just suck ass at reloads? Yes. Yes, I have, and that is certainly true. All of it. But the fact remains that other mag wells work better for cleaning up my sloppy ass reloads than the 2 standard Atlas ones. I ended up getting the Chile magwell from Atlas, and I actually like it quite a bit. That's what's installed on here right now. It's huge, so that might not be your thing, but it functions really well, and the insert on the bottom is replaceable, so if you ever, over time gouge the shit out of it, you can replace it. It's a pain in the ass to replace, mind you, but it's possible. Moving higher up in the gun, the Athena does feature an AMBI safety, which is really nice for those times where you're, say, shooting a match and the stage designer hates fun and adds a bunch of weekend-only stages. You know that kid who would remind the teacher if they forgot to assign homework for the weekend? Those kids grow up and design weekend-only stages. Fucking nerds. The safety is actually really nice because the right side is extra wide. Gives you a little bit more space for your thumb, a little bit more control of the gun. It does cause an issue with some 2011 holsters though, as it may not fit at all or will rub. Luckily, we do have Atlas specific holsters that will accommodate the extra wide safety. One other thing to note about safeties is that it does not have a typical grip safety. Those are pretty commonly kind of deleted from competition built 2011s. Lots of guys will either pin the grip safety or use tape or Ranger band or whatever to keep it disengaged. There are various reasons folks do it. I'm not going to get into it because I simply don't really have an opinion on it. I haven't ever had an issue with not being able to disengage a grip safety with a normal grip on any 1911 or 2011, but that's just me, so it's not a plus or minus for me on this gun. If this were to be a carry gun for you, that might be something to consider. Now the mag release is slightly taller than some other standard mag releases. It's kind of a minor thing, it's not huge, but you can definitely feel that it's easier to reach. It's not as crazy as some of the extended mag releases you see in open guns that have like a big paddle on it, which can sometimes be easy to hit when you're mating your grip together. This one is big enough that you still kind of can if you're getting a little bit sloppy with the grip. I've done it in a match, very embarrassing, but that was my own fault. Moving higher up, we have the optics plate. This one came with an RMR plate, which also happens to fit the SRO perfect. Moving forward from that, we have the trigger, which is just, so good. This is a flat face trigger, which is very short and light. I believe this is actually their medium, and you can get a slightly shorter one depending on your hand size. Let's just take a minute. Imagine we're doing the old Dutch rudder on this sucker. Oh, that's so good. Now further forward from that, we have the tactical rail, which is for mounting lights and such. It does not appear to be the standard 1913 rail spec for some reason that I don't understand. I thought maybe it was just our gun, but I've heard the same thing from others as well. It's about 1 millimeter short from the standard for some reason. Pretty much every other gun I have, I've measured, and it's about between 4.5 and 5 millimeters. This one's like 3.2 millimeters. For most of you that don't run a light, it's not going to be a big deal. And for many lights, it won't, but some lights it will. For example, the Streamlight TLR1, if you use their 1913 rail key that should fit in here, it doesn't. The only way to make those ones work is to use a Glock key, which is why we haven't actually designed a holster for the TLR1 and these. That being said, I really much prefer how a Surefire X300 works in conjunction with a full-sized heavy 2011 like this. Up on the front of the gun, we also have some nice slide serrations. They're not crazy aggressive, but they do their job. It really works well for unloaded starts. And finally, we've got a nice red fiber optic front sight, which I don't think I've ever actually used. To be honest, I kind of forgot that it existed. All in all, it's a really great looking gun, and it feels fantastic. But how does it shoot? Obviously, that's the most important. So let's kind of dig into that. Now, personally, I think a review of less than 1,000 rounds is downright worthless. So we set our initial test plan for this at 2,500 rounds of testing with a little bit of extra sprinkled in for matches. That was before I broke my camera in another review, and we got busy with some other projects, and I put this review off for 1.5 years. So the current round count is closer to the recommended maintenance schedule of 10,000 rounds than it is to 2,500 rounds. Now, I did start off by mounting an SRO pretty much immediately, so while you could use iron sights that come with the gun, I just think red dots make the shooting experience much more enjoyable. And if you're not having fun while shooting, fucking doing it wrong. Plus my eyes are all jacked up in a really unique way, and using optics really helps reduce the impact of that for me. So if you like irons, whatever. Nerd. So the full review was conducted with the Trijicon SRO installed. This year, USPSA introduced a new division called Limited Optics, which seems to be kind of tailor-made for this type of setup. So all the matches I've shot this year, and the majority of my range practice and dry fire has been with the Athena. The past 4 to 5 months or so, I've been either shooting or dry firing this gun pretty much every day. So I would say this is a well broken in gun at this point. Now this is a very fast gun, and it is a very accurate gun, and it handles really well. It truly is a blast to shoot. Accuracy from rest at 15 and 25 yards was quite good, better than what I can get from my other pistols. But this is a precisely machined and fitted 2011, so I kind of have high expectations of accuracy. The fantastic trigger, along with the barrel and slide and frame fitment, all come together nicely to make very accurate shots fairly easy to achieve. Up at closer distances is where you can really push the speed, and that's another place where this trigger shines. There was a slight but noticeable difference in split times between this and my staccato, and build drills were even more fun. But that super light trigger is something to be careful of. If you've been using a striker-fired gun, or even just another single-action gun that has a bit of a take-up in it, you really want to be paying attention not to prep the trigger. If you are used to prepping the trigger while you're extending the gun out onto the target, you're probably going to touch rounds off the first couple times. So there's very little slack before hitting a light, crisp wall, and trigger weight is right about that 1.5 mark, which is about as low as I'd want to go on a pistol. Recoil, control, and perfect zero. Atlas says they designed their guns for perfect zero, which basically means that after the first shot is taken, after the natural recoil cycle of the gun, it should be able to put the next shot pretty much in the same spot without having to do any subconscious adjustments to line the sights back onto the target. It should essentially fall back into alignment and not kind of bounce around. I'll link their video below where they explain in more detail the perfect zero. And really, if you're interested in Atlas guns or 2011s in general, you should watch their videos. They have a ton of great and knowledgeable content that isn't just for Atlas guns. Any 2011, you can gain some knowledge from them. Now that said, this gun is not going to do the work for you. Well, guns like this tend to be easy to shoot well. And if you want to be able to pull off fast and accurate shots in like rapid succession, you still need to be making sure that you do your part. You still got to have your grip dialed in, maintain visual focus on the target, make sure that you have the right trigger control. But if you can do your part, you can really make this gun sing. Now, while I would say that the recoil is not as soft as a compensated 2011 like the XC, it does track very, very well. And as with any 9mm full-sized gun, you won't have the same felt recoil as you would with the subcompact. It's fairly manageable. You aren't fighting the gun to keep it on target, and it is working with you. But as far as felt recoil goes, it's splitting hairs of whether or not it's better or worse than another 2011. The big thing I like is the return to zero. It's just another one of these things about this gun that shows that there's a good amount of thought that goes into the build for a performance-driven outcome. This isn't just a Glock with a bunch of random custom parts thrown at it. Hell, it's not even just another 2011 with some fancy machining. Like, it's well thought out and performs as intended, which is to a very high standard. Now, obviously, we need to talk about reliability, because we all know there's going to be someone out there shouting at their computer about how Special Forces dropped the 1911 for being unreliable, or 2011s are princess guns, or some other excuse about how this gun sucks because you can't drive over it and have it still work. I don't know, maybe you could. I'm not fucking doing it though. Let's be real. It's a high performance 2011. It's not that hard to make it not run. In fact, the first range outing with this gun, it was riddled with malfunctions, but a wise man once told me that dirty guns will run wet and clean guns won't run dry, and I believe that was the biggest issue. I did give it a quick clean and lube as I would with most guns, but I didn't check to see what Atlas recommends for lube. I just kind of followed other 2011 recommendations, and I believe it was a combination of it being a bit cold and not enough lube, and it being kind of brand new, that caused some of the malfunctions, which were mostly failures to go into battery. Now, I'd been using Lucas Oil Extreme Duty or something like that. It says it's rated for minus 38 to 400 degrees freedom, but I found that anything below freezing and it gets a little thick. In fact, the only real reasons I had with my Staccato were also in the cold and with this lube. So what I've done is basically just give it a lot more oil. Speaking of, I do have a long-term review of the Staccato XC, so subscribe if you want to be notified and find out how the Staccato XC holds up to 10,000 plus rounds. Essentially, Atlas recommends soaking this gun like you were sacrificing an ironborn to the drowned god. Once I did that, even with that Lucas Oil thickness, it ran flawless. So keep that in mind. A warm, wet tool is a happy tool. One quick note on this: if you are carrying a gun in a concealment holster next to your body, it doesn't really get as cold as if you're using an outside the waistband holster out in the winter, but it's still something that you want to test with your carry gun. Go outside in the cold with your normal gear and make sure that it can run and that there aren't going to be any issues. You don't want to find out that your gun lube doesn't like anything below room temperature while in the middle of a gunfight in the winter. And fuck what the label says. Go test it for yourself. I did make a fake torture test on our Staccato XC review, and I talked about how 2011s are kind of princess guns, but in actuality, that gun has proven to be the most reliable gun I've ever owned, surprisingly enough. The Athena, however, is a bit more of a princess gun. I wouldn't go as far as to say it's unreliable, but you got to keep up on maintenance, especially keeping things lubricated. As long as it's wet, it runs fine. The biggest issue has been failure to go in a battery, and it pretty much always happens while the guns have been run hard for a while, maybe collecting a bit of dust, and getting it a bit kind of dry. So, would I go to war with it? Probably not. It wouldn't be my first choice. Okay, so say we're finally invaded by Russians, or aliens, or whatever. Use your imagination. It's my story, so in my story it's going to be aliens. But they're not like little gray aliens. They're actually shaped like grilled cheese sandwiches. And the world is crashing down around us, and your buddy makes it over to your place alive, but all his guns were destroyed by the grilled cheesians. So you got to give him some of your guns so you can mount your guerrilla counteroffensive, right? So, he's a pretty good friend of yours, but there was at one time he asked you to help him build a deck on his house, and he said he'd buy beer after you guys started working on it. He brought out half a sixer of Bud Light. That's all he had, and they were all warm. It's you're good friends, but that was total bullshit. For fuck's sakes, if a guy's going to help you build a deck, it's a case of beer minimum. Probably pizza too. Depends on the size of the deck, I guess. But anyways, he's a good guy aside from that. I'd give this guy that gun to fight the war. Due to this, we will be forgoing the customary YouTube torture test and instead just doing some other testing. Now, first up is the grip. Now, the one thing that so many people will fawn over is the Atlas V2 grip and how great it is. Let's test out how great it really is. Now, first up is Monterey Jack. Now, this is a fairly soft cheese, so I'm concerned that the grip isn't quite sharp enough, but we'll see how this goes. Nah, I'm just fucking with you. I really do like this grip, though. It's almost perfect in terms to how well it sticks in your hand. The texture is aggressive, but it's not too sharp for the most part, except for this little piece. This grip panel that I got the wrong aggressive texture on is pretty damn sharp. Once you squeeze into it, it's not going anywhere, but as you're mating your grip, you're going to grind away at the meat on your hand. If you do a lot of dry fire with this thing like I have, you're going to get a little bit chewed up. I do not plan and have not been using this as a carry gun. Not only do I not want to wear a cheese grater every day, but this particular trigger is too light for a carry gun in my opinion. Call me chicken shit if you want, but I don't have any extra length to spare, so appendix carry is definitely out. So what is it good for? What role does it fill? The reality for us is that the biggest reason that we bought this thing was designing holsters and test fitting finished products and stuff like that. For me personally, I'm a shooter more than a collector. So whenever I'm buying a new gun, I always have to make sure it has a real purpose. Otherwise, it's just taking up physical and budget space that could be used for a more useful gun. Having backups is kind of a nice thing, but aside from that, it's got to fill some sort of unique purpose. To me, This gun really reminds me of like a Ferrari or some other high-end supercar. It obviously has that like racing pedigree, but isn't necessarily a purpose-built race car in itself. Like kind of in the same that the Atlas Chaos is. That's more of the race car version. This is beautiful. It's high performance, but not so much that it's not practical. It could be like your daily driver if you're bold enough and willing to put up with a bit higher maintenance, but that's not necessarily the intended purpose either, though Atlas does list it in their defensive guns category. It's a bit heavy, the trigger's a bit light, and the grip is a bit excessive for all-day comfort, plus the lack of the grip safety. It's kind of out for me. Without the optic, I think this would be a good choice for USPSA Limited if you only want to run like factory 9mm minor ammo. If you want to run it with the optic, then you have limited optics division, which I think this gun is that's the perfect place for it. Something like 3-gun, where even the open division guns aren't, they tend to be a bit more practical than race car-esque. I think that's where the optics mounted version would be a good choice, and obviously without the optic would be a great choice for limited or TAC ops in 3-gun. But all in all, even if you don't compete, which you should because it's fun, I think it's just a really great weekend warrior gun you can use for fun at the range, as well as keeping it in your bedside safe for home defense. Now, by the time you option this gun out during purchase, it'll be looking at close to $6,000 or so, which ain't freaking cheap. But I do believe the value is there in the build quality and the performance. Now, obviously, that can be a little bit subjective based on the individual's needs and budget and what have you. But if you want a high-performance gun, it's fast, accurate, total blast to shoot, and it will keep pace with you all the way up to the highest levels of competition, this is it. If you get the chance to take a test drive with one of these, take it. If you have the means to pick one of these things up, I'd recommend it. The thing that I've really liked the most about this gun is that it performs so well that it makes you really want to improve your own skills to try and catch up to it. You want to learn how to drive it. Like the hours of dry fire that I've put in, the hours at the range, the thousands of rounds of ammo, trying to really perfect my own skills, perfect my grip, perfect my vision, your stance, your draw, like nailing all these things down so that you can perform your best, so that you can kind of do the gun justice. I think that's kind of a fun thing about it. There's something to be said about getting a gun that's fun to shoot, that makes you want to pick it up and practice, that makes you excited to go home at the end of the day and pick it up and spend an hour dry firing. That's about all for me. Thanks for watching. Bye, holster.